Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Scott Morris, founder and CEO of Propulsion AI, and we learn from him how companies can reduce hiring bias, streamline recruitment, and adapt to evolving expectations in 2025 with the use of artificial intelligence. Welcome to the show, Scott.
Thank you so much, AJ. It's a pleasure to be with you. I appreciate the invite to your show.
You are welcome. Welcome to the show, Scott. Welcome to India in this online form. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk right now. As I said, we'll be talking about artificial intelligence. We'll talk about careers. We'll talk about talent acquisition in just, from tomorrow, we'll be in a new year, and new year is going to be a lot of changes. And so in that backdrop, we'll have our conversation. But first, let's understand a bit more about you, your journey, your background, Scott, so that the listeners can know who they are listening to.
Well, I'll tell you, I have 25 years of experience within the profession of people operations or human resources, about 20 of those years in a C-level role. I've worked in organizations as large as 15,000 and down to 250, and I'm happy about that aspect of my background because it's given me the ability to understand the full spectrum from designing and steering strategy, which you do in a large organization. But in an organization of 250 people, nobody cares what your title is. Everybody's got their sleeves rolled up. Everybody's hands are in the details, and learning how to do the hard work in this case that recruiters do has been incredibly valuable. But I've also done the exact same thing with compensation, with employee relations, et cetera. So a pretty broad but also deep background. I made the decision in 2023 to leave what effectively was a really safe, manageable 45-hour-a-week, existence, highly paid. And I traded all of that for the chaos of a startup, 70 plus hours and no pay in the beginning. So, and anybody who's founded a company knows exactly what that part of the journey is. We are totally focused on this concept of employee fit and helping employees and employers make better decisions about how they come together around work.
Absolutely. So let's understand about Propulsion AI. What is Propulsion AI? You talk about, intelligent job descriptions written by AI and you. So, I want to understand a bit about how artificial intelligence as well as human. As of now, I thought people write a lot of content with the help of AI and then try to humanize it again with the help of another sort of artificial intelligence. Help us understand what do you mean by this particular thing, and also about Propulsion AI.
Well, AJ, let's start first with what I've seen as a very thematic situation across 20 years of counseling managers. Somebody gets the ability to put a new role into their organization. That might be a role that they're changing inside. It might be an internal hire, might be a hire from the outside. They've got now the ability to put somebody into that role. And they immediately start to think about all of the tasks that they want that person to do. And I think that actually heads off on the wrong path, because we're not thinking about how to engage that person from the very beginning. And that engagement's important. We know it from a Towers-Watson study. Fully engaged employees tend to produce 16% more than we pay them. And fully disengaged employees tend to produce only about 60% of what we pay them. So from the very beginning, we have to be thinking about this concept of engagement. The other thing we have to think about is pride and purpose, because we want to reduce turnover. We want to keep that person in the role. And yet the very first thing we do is we think about, like, what are all the minutia tasks that we want that person to be assigned to. Now, we take a very different view of that. We think that the role design should start with this concept of outcomes. I'll give you a really tangible and quick example, AJ. So let's say that I'm hiring an accountant. It would be totally reasonable in the world of today for me to write into that job description, follow up on delinquent accounts. But think about that. How engaging is that? I'm telling you that your job is to come in and write emails and make phone calls to people who don't want to talk to you. Now, that is inevitably work that has to be done, but it is a means to an end. And the end is something called days outstanding. We want to collect money faster from accounts that we've sold. So instead of saying, hey, I want you to follow up on delinquent accounts, my starting point should be, I'm going to give you accountability and responsibility for something that's very important to the business, days outstanding. Your job is to reduce that number. By the way, here are some things that you're going to have to do that, but I may not know all of them. And the reason we think that's so important is we want that person in that role to come back to us and say, hey, look, if this is the outcome you're trying to get to, shouldn't we be doing these things? All right, longer setup than I intended, but here's the quick punchline. Propulsion AI effectively interviews that manager. And in the course of that interview, there is an exchange of information, but more importantly, the platform provokes thought. It catalyzes that user's thinking about what they want in the role. And because our digital human, who we've named Athena, is digital, in parallel, she can do a bunch of work. For example, she can write a performance-based job description, an SEO-optimized job posting, social media content, interviewer prep guides, all of that. But the biggest value that gets delivered is that you as a user get your head around that role and truly understand what you want. And that has not only benefits for hiring, but all the way through the spectrum of activities related to talent management.
Right. So at one point you mentioned about, descriptions written by AI and you, and at another place you also mentioned about that the job description is dead. Help us understand these two different things at the same time that you talk about.
Well, you've read it. You've read them just like I have. You pick up a job description, it reads like an obituary, right? It's not engaging. It's not purpose built. It's not about, having that person feel like they've got an ownership stake in the organization. When employees feel like they are accountable for something meaningful, they are going to bring to the table something that we couldn't even ask them for. It's an energy. That is called engagement. And so when I say the job description's dead, in principle, it's because of what I just said to you, and I won't repeat that. But that mentality says the job description's about compliance, it's about tasks, and it's something we have to do. The new mentality is that job description is something that drives engagement, it reduces turnover, and it increases productivity. But the key is the manager's mindset.
Absolutely. But tell me, Scott, who is listening? Is your product for the industry, or is the industry there for your product? That's why I asked who is listening, because companies, what they want, what they do not want. At the end of the day, everybody has their own hidden agendas. Everyone wants to look at things. And also I want to understand, first let's talk about this, then I'll ask the other questions.
So you and I have both likely observed companies where managers say, I need top talent in this role. And yet they don't want to put in the time required to think about that role, to think about how the person that goes into it is a strategic asset, to think about what's going to happen in the business. Those companies are probably not our customers. But I think the majority of companies are looking for ways to make that process easier. We did when the company was founded, we did about 100 interviews to start with top recruiters, top HR business partners, top chief people officers. And one of the things that we heard from them is that process that I described, thinking through the role, writing all the collateral, takes a long time. In fact, the consensus seemed to be, if you're doing it right, between 4 and 6 hours. We reduced that time to as little as 15 minutes. So if your company culture is one in which you're just cutting and pasting things, you're kind of phoning it in, you don't really think about your workforce as a strategic asset, we're probably not the right tool for you. But the people that I think are listening are the ones who are thinking about the workforce as a strategic asset, and they just simply need an easier, faster, and higher quality way of getting what's in their head out and getting it out so that they can start to attract that top talent.
Right. So is it for employees also who are looking for jobs, or is it only for companies, or is it for both?
So right now, it depends on your use case. Here's what we are expecting and what we want to see happen with the portfolio of products that we're creating. it's that the use cases are really obvious when it comes to the company, right? You have a position, you need to design it. You're the manager, you're the one with all this stuff in your head. But think about this as a use case. In the world of today, business needs change. And so if you're my boss, you come to me and you say, hey, Scott, I've got to pivot your role because the business need is changing. What you did yesterday is not what you're going to do tomorrow. Here are my ideas. And you come empty-handed to that. And the reason you come empty-handed is the amount of effort that you have to put in to actually go and write these things down is huge, right? But I'm a good corporate citizen and I say, AJ, okay, I'm fine with that. Let's go ahead and go. You turn around to then update my job description and 15 other things come in that are more important, and it never happens. And that's how over time employees start doing work and their job descriptions have no meaning. And that goes back to what I said about the job description is dead because we've allowed it to die. But think about the world of tomorrow, right? You say to me, hey, the business needs are changing. Here's how we're going to do it. Let's both design your dream job around these. You go to the platform, I go to the platform, we both create something. It takes us 15 minutes to do it. We come together and we collaborate around something concrete. That's a different use case. And so I think employees are great opportunities for this particular platform when they think about what job they want to do that is going to help that organization increase its bottom line result.
Right. So in a way, are you trying to say, Scott, that companies who have got this big HR department, recruiters, also outside recruiters, placement agencies, their job will reduce if companies start using propulsion AI, or is it not going to be like that? Is there some compartmentalization that can happen?
Well, I mean, I think, again, it depends on your situation. If you're in a company, and I know this kind of goes the opposite direction size-wise from what you're asking, but if you're in a company that is focusing a lot of its attention on engineering and on product, and you're not putting a lot of money into people ops, you still have a workforce that needs to be taken care of. And the very few resources that you have in human resources, they're very taxed. They have a lot of different directions that they are being pulled, and sitting down with a manager and doing the hard work. The hard work is necessary and it produces results, but it's time intensive. That's a hard trade-off for people. This platform frees those people to add value at a higher level by competently doing exactly what they would have done with some of the more administrative tasks. Now, I think that personally, that is the right way to be utilizing or to be thinking about artificial intelligence technology in our workforce today. The starting point for most companies should be, let's look at all of the things that we wish our people didn't have to do so that they could do other things. And those are the subjects that I think, organization leaders should be focused on when it comes to the application of technology. And that's what we built PropulsionAI for. Now, if you're a larger organization, you want to distribute the work. I'm going to give you an example. In my last corporate assignment, we were a private equity owned company. We were merging together 4 SaaS companies into a single company. We had to rewrite or write new 400 job descriptions. It took my team, I'm not kidding you, AJ, it took us 13 weeks. With this product, we would have been done with the writing in an afternoon.
Right, Scott. So does it also mean that, HR professionals, recruiters who feel that they may get redundant because of all this change in technology, they can renew their careers by using a tool like this, by actually guiding a lot of people who are looking for new places, by telling them exactly how they can find something useful either within their own organizations or from outside, almost like transforming their career transitions, but in a whole lot with the help of artificial intelligence.
Let me do a historical one. I wasn't alive for this one, but if we go back to 1967, I wasn't alive, right? But go back to 1967, Texas Instruments released, drum roll, the calculator. And everybody thought that math skills would go away and that accountants would be, unnecessary and bookkeepers and all of those roles. And in reality, the opposite was true. Now, fast forward, I was alive for this one, 1983, Lotus Notes released, or Lotus released 123, which was the precursor to what we see today in production as Microsoft Excel. And that platform, same exact phenomenon happened. Everybody thought people were going to be made redundant, when in reality, roles did change, but accountants and finance professionals actually became more valuable. But they became more valuable because they transitioned away from delivering value in calculations, and they started to deliver value in analysis and strategy. And I think we're going to see the exact same thing here. And any recruiter who thinks that AI is going to replace them, I will tell you this: AI is not going to take jobs, but people who embrace the technology are going to take the jobs of the people who don't. That's what we're going to see. In the case, and this goes directly to your question, I think if I'm an internal recruiter, I say, listen, I'm not going to guide anybody using the platform. The platform guides the manager. What I'm going to do is let go of that, and I'm going to start to do things that technology isn't doing really well right now. Building candidate pools, thinking critically and making judgments about individuals that have applied for roles, prepping interviewers and interview committees, and those are higher value tasks that also take a lot of time, that are they require human beings. And I think that we're going to see that same thing that happened with the calculator with Lotus 1-2-3. We're going to see that same thing happen with artificial intelligence in people ops.
Right. One more thing I wanted to get your take on is this, that till this, it is still okay. Recently, there was a lot of talk about, I don't know whether you got to read that, but there was this person and some artificial intelligence tool, or bot called her or him, and then they wanted to do that first round of interview with the person. And apparently the person declined not to talk to the artificial intelligence bot. If this is the kind of mindset companies are moving towards, then they might use your tool to be the first thing, which looks like innocuous, which looks like useful, and then sneakily you bring in the bots. In a way, it looks like that the future is moving towards, removing all the human out of human resource and including you. How do you see this scenario for those companies who want to get bots into the system and reduce headcounts?
Yeah, so, okay, I think you have to question sort of what are you trying to do from the very beginning? And are there going to be companies out there that are looking to reduce their headcount? Yes, you can take any tool and use it in one way or use it in another way, and you get different results no matter what you do. So to be clear, the Propulsion AI platform today is really focused on role design, on helping managers get what's in their head out of their head, and then doing all of the heavy lifting of the creative writing for them, right? That's the focus of the platform today. Your question about bots and interviewing, there are still a lot of questions that have to be resolved. Questions of bias and how we manage from the very beginning, deliberately and thoughtfully, the integration of technology and the reduction of bias all at the same time. We also have an adoption issue. If a bot called a lot of people today, I think people would be skeptical of that. But I don't think that's going to be the situation in the future. And I feel great when I look at researchers like Walter Greenleaf at Stanford, who his focus is on military veterans with PTSD, but his research interest is really about honesty. And what he's looking at is, if the avatar is lifelike enough, and if the experience is human enough, what he's finding is that we are far more predisposed to be honest with a bot than we are with another human. And that's going to be of benefit, not hurt, to the HR community. Because when you think about it, if I post a job today, the likely scenario is I'm going to have 500 applicants in that role. A human recruiter can't touch in a meaningful way 500 applicants. And so what's going to happen is, and now I'm going to be a little critical of our profession, right? We are not the expert in the business. We are there to support them, right? Which means that now the people who are not experts are going to take that 500 person pool and probably dip up 20 that we're going to really look at. 480 people never get the chance to even make their case. Technology could level that playing field for us by saying, hey, we got your application. We'd like to hear from you. When are you available? And whatever answer I give, the answer is, from the bot is going to be okay, right? And potentially reduce what is a weeks-long sourcing and screening effort into a matter of days.
Right, right. So let me understand it, from this point of view, in terms of, you talk about bias, hiring bias. On one aspect, the advanced form of bots may bring in some bias. I don't know how it will happen, or it may not, or maybe the companies may design it in a way. But your propulsion AI seems to reduce hiring bias. Help us understand about its competency here. How does it do there, and what sort of hiring bias are you talking about?
Yeah, so to be clear, we don't do anything. Propulsion AI's focus right now is on the design of the job, helping managers get out of their head and onto paper a job that is meaningful and that is connected to outcomes that are significant to the business. But there is bias that gets introduced, and it's the bias that happens when you are non-specific. So if I take a traditional path to writing a job description, I'm writing things that are very loose, not well described, etc. That becomes really, really hard to use as a tool to effectively source and screen talent. And when I do it, I'm introducing a bunch of other biases. Is that person like me? Are they the most recent person that I have talked to? Am I tired? And I'm looking for mental shortcuts in my selection process as I'm starting as a recruiter to put people into the buckets that we all know exist, right? I want to talk to you more. I don't want to talk to you, and I don't want to talk to you now, and I'm probably not going to talk to you ever, right? Those three buckets. So what Propulsion AI does is it creates a hyper-specific job spec, and it does it in a really short amount of time. We think a great job description has a couple of things in it. One is outcomes-oriented responsibilities, things that are connected to organizational outcomes, right? The second is key performance indicators. More importantly, measurable results. It's not enough that my KPI is employee net promoter score. The organization is hiring me because they need me to do something with that KPI. They need me to move it, say, from 50 to 70, right? And so that level of specificity built in, and most of us as leaders in business, most of us know what we want, but we're really bad at articulating that. The platform pulls those kind of specifics out of the user and gets them down into the document. Now that allows the recruiter to be much more objective rather than subjective in their sourcing and screening efforts. And ultimately, when we get to interviews, it gives us the ability to divide the interview population. You and I have both, I'm sure, been in interviews where we've gotten asked the same questions over and over and over again, and nobody needs that. It's a bad mark on your brand and your employment brand. It's a waste of time for the candidate and for the interviewers. When the spec is hyper specific, we can now split the interview population up. We can say, group one, you're going to look at how the candidate's past experiences relate to the future outcomes that we need. Group two, you're going to look at technical skills and knowledge. Group three, you're going to look at competencies and behaviors. And all of these things are a part of what is produced by the Propulsion AI platform in that job description. So the bias, while we don't do anything with candidate selection currently, bias starts long before you even get your first candidate onto your map.
Right. So if I create a job description as a company and I put the same thing, because most of the candidates, if I understand, they are looking for jobs also, or fine-tuning the resumes on LinkedIn. And a company creates a job description, puts it on LinkedIn. How do you think will it be able to find the right candidates for itself? Because then it will be hundreds and hundreds of candidates, because the job description will be much more, fine-tuned. Rather, how would you say, much more wide-based or something like that? How does that work?
Well, I don't know how you intend that term of wide-based. I think it is a very specific. In fact, I do more than think, because we designed it specifically to be hyper-specific. Now, that's going to do two things. Like, you go out and you read something, right? And you're inspired by that. And maybe it's not a job description. Let's move the example off of that, right? But we've all had the experience of being inspired by something we've read or seen or been a part of, right? And that's the first thing that a great job posting, and remember, the job description and the job posting are two different things. The job description has an internal audience. Its purpose is to reduce ambiguity and create clarity. The job posting is a marketing document, and it should do two things. It should inspire top talent to say, I want to be a part of that. And it should scare off the wrong talent. And by wrong talent, what I mean is people who are not ready to take on the hard work that is going to be a part of this job. And I think that's another thing that the platform does, is it helps managers say, look, here are the really good things about coming to work for us. And here are the really hard things that we're going to expect of the person that goes into this job, but we're going to be celebrating you for when you accomplish them. And those two things together are the ones that allow candidates to self-select, either selecting in because they're inspired, which is something that honestly, it does not happen with cut and pasted things that get thrown on the web, right? You've said you're laughing because you and I both know it, right? Nobody gets inspired by that. And we want that because we want the top talent to go, wait a minute, that's interesting. And you know why? Because they have options. They're not thinking about your company until you inspire them to think about your company. And then they want to come in and they want to know more. And when they finish their first interview, they're going to say, I'd like to see the job description. And most companies will fumble around and say, we'll write one, right? But here with Propulsion, because everything gets created at once, you've got the ability to immediately email them and let them see even a greater level of detail than they could have gotten in the job ad.
Right. What about the candidates? How can they use? Can they also use it to create their own profiles and also share it? You see, LinkedIn offers facilities. Thousands of other, places also offer those jobs, which you can cut, paste, and put into, LinkedIn summary and whatever way you want to. But then, if some recruiter is using Propulsion AI, then candidates should also have that benefit of, equal playing field and also be able to use Propulsion AI to put it in their own summaries.
Well, we care about the candidate side and the employee side just as much as we do the corporate side. The reality is the work with the candidates is a roadmap item for us. We think the first and most important obstacle to conquer is getting managers to shift their mindset, getting them to think about the jobs differently, getting them to think in outcomes-oriented terms. And that's what Propulsion AI does today. On our roadmap will be the ability to do a better match. I think overall, across the world, we over-index on resumes. We over-index on experiences, resume experiences. And we know that 84% or some, I can't quote the statistic on this one, but it's close to that 84% mark of resumes have embellishments on them. So the worst possible way to match is with that resume. But we've got a very thoughtful and deliberate way that we will start to shift that selection process. We're focused right now on gaining traction with this product, and we're also focused on solving that very foundational issue. Managers need to think differently about the job, and they need to be able to write the collateral a lot faster.
Wonderful. One last question I want to understand is the market. Where is your market today in the US, Canada, or is it also going to be everywhere else?
Our focus right now is in the US market and Canada, but these are human problems. And you confirm, even though it's non-scientific, watching you react to things that I've said this morning confirms for me that these are the same kind of problems that you're facing in India, the same problems I know because I worked in Latin America as well, and we face the exact same issues. We went about them a little bit differently, but they're human problems. And I think at the end of the day, people are not looking for jobs. People are looking for meaning. And if we can deliver them that meaning, that's universal. And, we need to be focused right now because we're a nascent company. But again, I think these issues are just broader than one particular geographic market.
So a company in India can also use Propulsion AI today, can they?
100%. There are some features. For example, Propulsion AI will do within the US market, Propulsion AI will do a compensation analysis on base salary, based on geography, reporting relationship, responsibilities, and skills. And that we don't have that available in the global market today. That is a roadmap item for us as we start to branch out past the United States. But so there are certain add-on features that will not work the same way outside of the US, but the core functionality works exactly the same way. And so if there's somebody listening who has that mindset that I've described, and they're looking for a tool to facilitate that process or maybe distribute the work, that can happen in any country around the world.
Wonderful. There is so much to learn from you about all these things. And I'm sure a lot of companies would want to learn about all these things from you, Scott. And so a lot of people who would want to learn about you, from you, about Propulsion AI, what's the best way for them to do so?
Yeah, go to the website, www.getpropulsion.ai. You can try it for free. We totally believe that, we don't need to trick anybody into credit cards up front. I think if you try this product, you are going to find that it is amazing, that it works exactly as it is supposed to work. And so we open up free access to people for a trial period. You can do as many jobs as you want. Come on in, try it. And if you like it, there's an easy sign up process. And if you're thinking about it for your enterprise or for your larger organization, just contact us and we will help to size it so that you get exactly what you want and none of what you don't need.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thanks, AJ.